So, continuity in the real world. My cochinita pibil is halfway done in the oven right now. So that means I have enough time to make some tortillas for it. It's not too lengthy of a process. It's just, just like anything else, takes a little bit of time. But you'll have fresh tortillas for your food, which is game changer. That's the once you have something like this, regardless of what you're eating, like fresh is always better. There's no way around that. So I need 2.5 cups of flour. Normally I use my metal bowl to mix everything, but I just took the pibil out and I want to give it a proper wash in the dishwasher. I could do it by hand, which I did. I give it a rinse, but I prefer the dishwasher to make sure it gets in there good. 2.5 cups of water. I'm sorry, 2.5 cups of flour. What I like to do, so like in this case here, I put my butter in. Put the butter in. I melted the butter in the microwave for, this is one whole stick of butter, unsalted, for about 30 seconds to just fully incorporate it. And that way, what we're doing here is just coating every single piece of flour in butter as well as we possibly can. So you start getting these clumps, which is what you want. When it gets clumpy like that, that's good. You, of course, washed your hands before all of this, right? You should always wash your hands. You should always just wash your hands. As we've learned through the ongoing pandemic here, a lot of people don't like to wash their hands. I don't know what to tell you, but other than to wash your hands. All right. So, with the water, do not add all of the water at once. You do not need all of this water. You probably don't. You have a cup of water. I like to warm it up to about 100 degrees. Put in about half of the water, maybe even less. So I'm going to put in, let's have my little line there. Yeah, little splash more. When you need more, you'll get it. But as far as this goes, it's okay. Just work it. Because if you put in all that water, I guarantee you're going to need more flour. And then you have to, do I need more flour, more water, more flour, more water? Rather than do that, put in half the water, start this, mix it for a good couple of minutes. Then put in more water as needed. See, I need just like another tablespoon of water. I'd go by tablespoon. That seems to be a good metric. Just go a tablespoon at a time after you put in half of the water. So the recipe does call for a cup. Maybe there's a situation where you'll use the whole cup. I don't know. I know the last time I put in a whole cup and I ended up making more than I needed because it just kind of, I had to do the whole dance of more flour, more water, more flour, more water. You don't want to get into that. That's just going to cause your problems down the road, and it'll make too much material. Like for me, this is going to make a dozen, and that's too many already. But, you know, the ingredient cost isn't substantial. Put in another teaspoon. Now that I'm squawking about only using half the water and you probably won't need it all, I might end up using most of it. Of course. But it's been about 4 minutes. So usually it's like between 7 and 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes up to 10 minutes to get it right. But you only got to do it once, and once it's right, then you're good to go. So it's not like, well, unless you're making tortillas all the time, I guess, but I don't have that kind of luxury or time for that matter. Okay. So it's starting to come along okay. Make sure I say put in another tablespoon. Honestly, if you just made this little cup, it'll filter down. I see the water going down just like this. Just give it a moment. Let the water soak in for a moment. Giving it a rest while you're doing this does help. Okay. The sound changed a little bit. We got more moisture coverage. I do not need this to be dry, but I don't need it to be really sticky either. So there's that middle ground. Now I just gotta make sure you don't have any dry spots in here. I think we've added enough water, so that was 4 more tablespoons. So if anybody wants to do the conversion to 4 tablespoons of water, but I would just say use half a cup and then go tablespoon at a time. You don't want to add too much water simply because then you're just going to have to add more flour to even it out, and then it's an arms race, and then you have a big wad of dough, and it's not helpful. So there we go. Yeah, I can just feel like it turned a corner here. So we're 6 minutes into the mixing process here. Okay, it went. So of course my battery goes out. I spent I made sure that my light was charged again because it was almost out of juice. Didn't check my camera battery. So luckily I just have one right here. Just pop in a new battery. But yeah, it's been lost track of time. It was like right around 6 minutes. So we're around 8 minutes, and I think, and letting it rest for that 5 minutes where I was like, where do I have a battery? Do I have a battery? Where is, oh, and then I found it. Letting it rest like that helped it get smooth. So it's still scratchy, obviously. It's not perfect, but. Because this is the same bowl I made it in, it's got a layer of butter. I can feel it, like the fat, right? So normally I would spray it with a bowl with like vegetable oil, but I don't think it needs it. So I think this is ready. You know, this type of dough is a little bit scratchy. Maybe you could even get to a point where you just let it rest for like, you do like folds and rest maybe or something like that. I don't know. But it's not meant to be like anything beyond just like a quick thing to prepare. So, all right. Gonna cover this. Go to let it rest for like 20 minutes just here on the counter. See, look how much water was left. About a quarter. So I almost used another quarter cup of water. So maybe that's what the conversion is. Anyway, this step is done. Let it rest for about 20 minutes. Then we'll get into our shaping. But yeah, 20 minutes from now, we'll see. It's been about 20 minutes. My dough looks pretty good. So I'm going to take it out. Make about golf ball size balls. Dough's nice and strong. That's good. All right, so I made a dozen. Now I'm gonna 3, 6, 9, 12. Cover this with a towel and I'll be back. Grab my towel. The idea here is to give it like a bench rest for about 5 minutes or so. I made a dozen of these, so I had like 8, and then I just took some of them down because they're like this. They're like that, right? So they're gonna at least quadruple in size. So there'll be a nice tortilla to put my pork in, and then I'll have a few. So I'll probably like make breakfast tacos tomorrow with some of the leftover tortillas. So let this bench rest for, give it a good 5 minutes, and we'll be back to start the whole process of cooking them. Alright, looks funky, but I think that's a good one. Let's get this first one going, see what we got. While we're watching this one cook, get working on my next one. It's a little bit drier than I've been dealing with, but I think with this they'll be a little bit tougher, meaning that they'll have the PBO has a certain moisture to it, so these will be able to withstand that. Oh, look at the bubbles. There you go. Okay, I had my back turned the whole time I was making the next one. Bubbles, 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 bubbles. That's a good sign. That means everything's working the way it's supposed to. Look at that. They're covered in flour, so I'm not worried about there being anything in the pan. Getting color, smells good. Alright, I think we're in really good shape. I give it about a minute on the first side, maybe 70 seconds, and then another minute on the other side, just to get color. I want to make sure that everything it cooks all the way through, it has the right temperature all the way through. You want to have in this case, because a little pale, but the pan is just getting hot enough. I've been letting the pan sit for about 5 minutes on medium heat to get the pan really nice and hot. Everything appears to be okay. I made them a little smaller. I like them a little smaller. I think they're a little less likely to rip because they are a tiny bit thick, but not really. Look at that, that's great. So in the background here, I just start making the next ones. I have one ready to go, and I'm just about to roll out another one. I like to stay at least one, maybe two ahead, so that way I can just make them as quickly as possible, get them done. In the real world, I have about 10 minutes until my video is done. So this is going to work out almost perfectly. Of course, I'm going to stop the oven when the pibil is done and just let it sit. There we go. You have to remember that the heat goes away, the heat dissipates when you put that cold dough on it. So it does take a moment to reheat. So actually you could probably just, in between tortillas, you could just let it sit for a minute maybe, so that refire. How the texture looks already. Oops. Okay, give it a good flip now. There we go. Give it another minute. Raise the heat up just a hair to move the process along. I'm letting this one sit out for a moment. See what we got here. They're flaky and soft. They seem pretty tough. When you're putting moist things in a tortilla, it's gonna rip. That's just the way things work. It's gonna get soft. But I think this is good. Yeah. Okay. So I have like let me swallow. 10 more to go. So let's just watch. Looks like I'm gonna tell a ghost story when I have a underlid like that, but I don't care. Yeah, so those are tortillas. I think they came out pretty good. They're a little bit drier than I'd like, but I was afraid to not have too much water in it. So probably another tablespoon of water or so. But they're holding together pretty decently. I think they'll go up well against the juicy pibil that just came out of the oven, and it tastes really good. So that's the tortilla recipe that I've been using, and I've had pretty good luck with it. You just kind of play it by ear with the water. But anyway, this is my lunch. I'm letting the pork sit for a few minutes. The tortillas are ready. I'll probably just have another tortilla as a snack. And yeah, it's delicious, and I'm hungry.